Good morning. Welcome to WBB's Discovery Informatics webinar. My name is Sophia Moshasha, and I'm WBB's Marketing Manager. WBB is a leading government and public sector solutions provider dedicated to the enduring success of our clients. WBB's deep domain knowledge, innovative solutions, and world-class customer-focused methodologies assure sustainable results. These qualities make WBB a partner of choice in defense, homeland security, federal and health agencies, as well as commercial organizations. Our focus today is on providing the information our clients need to make an informed decision and take appropriate action. This morning's webinar will demonstrate how you can better access a wealth of data that will enable your organization to increase the value of information and gain actionable insights faster, attain rapid integrated access to multiple data sources that monitor, measure, and manage program performance across functional stovepipes, discover and assess shortfalls in required data, and support trade-off decisions and risks to program objectives in real time. Don Steyer and Paul McMullen will demonstrate our Discovery Informatics solution to you this morning. During the session, your microphone will be muted. Please type in all questions in the comment area or use the Raise Your Hand button section, and we will answer your questions at the end of the webinar. Welcome, Don and Paul.
Good morning, Don Steyer. I'm the Director of Innovation here at WBB. And as Sophia said, we're going to talk about Discovery Informatics from a project management perspective. And we're going to go ahead and advance the slides here. Okay, next slide. So today what we'll do is we'll go through an introduction. We're going to introduce ourselves a little bit, talk a little bit about WBB. What is Discovery Informatics? And I'll turn it over to Paul, and he'll talk a little bit about the actual approach and methodology, and then give a live demonstration. We'll talk about benefits, and then we'll go into a question and answer discussion period. Like I said, myself, Director of Innovation, retired Navy, been with WBB about 8 years. What I do here is really working to modernize our business processes so we can improve our service delivery to our clients. That way we increase that value, and it's all about the speed of decision making. And Paul is the Discovery Informatics Product Manager, who's a Senior Program Manager here at WBB, also retired Navy, and he'll introduce himself when he gets going. So a little bit about WBB. As Sophia said, been around since 1981. We're a mid-tier company. One of our value propositions is persistent client-side support with professional reach-back services, and our areas of practice are really very interdisciplinary. We really focus on creating value via collaboration, domain expertise, tailored methodologies, and innovative solutions. Next slide. We provide a full range of capabilities across the spectrum in the professional services market. As you can see, in the operational capabilities, development, acquisition, and program support, which is what we're going to talk about today, advanced analytics as well, and then mission performance support. What makes us a little bit unique is we have the ability to leverage our corporate intellectual capital and tailor our solutions so we can bundle them specifically to the client's needs. Next slide. So what is Discovery Informatics? So one of the things we've learned over time is how do we get to a place where we can reduce the reporting requirements, we can increase transparency, get access to our data. So we've created really an advanced analytics solution enabled by business discovery. We use what's called an evidence-based decision management framework, and we really are focused on knowledge to action. We do this across an entire spectrum. Today we'll talk about program planning control, including financial management, as our primary objective, but as you can see here, it's about framing the objective, finding the evidence, analyzing, visualizing, and taking action, which is common in industry and academia today. But the key here is the technology and the way we apply different technologies to get that faster. Next slide. So what is the issue? It's really about, for program managers and program management offices, it's really about speed and accuracy of informed decisions. We found our clients, quite frankly, are drowning in data but starving for knowledge, and because they need that actionable insight, they need to do more with what they have, and they need to respond quickly. without the proper processes, tools, techniques, and policies in place that are integrated and institutionalized into the organization, the decisions come too rapidly, and therefore there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity, as you can see in that diagram there, and it's just rolling the dice and feeling lucky. Next slide. So why is this a problem? Well, this is a little bit academic, a little bit philosophical, but the truth of the matter is there's this explosion of data that everybody calls big data. The speed of decision making, the demand for transparency is really causing this split in the technology market. In the past, traditional technology was infrastructure, hardware, your stack, business intelligence type tools, applications, and so forth. But because there's so much data out there and there's such a need for it and such a need to get access to it, but not necessarily just the data, but the evidence, which is the key and critical data, it's really about treating information as an asset. And so this shift from the focus of just a tool, which we use tools, but we don't want to focus on the tool, to an actual full-blown solutions around data science, data mining, and self-service business intelligence. Bottom line, program managers need insight and agility, and their functional principles as well. So what we're working here is to break those stovepipes of information down early such that we can integrate that information. I'm going to turn this over to Paul, let him introduce himself, and he's going to take you through how we approach this, give you a little demonstration, and then we'll wrap up on the back end on benefits and how this actually has helped the organization.
All right, good morning. Paul McMullen, Program Manager at WBB. As you mentioned, I'm going to go a little bit more into the technical details of the solution itself. I understand there's a handful of folks out there who were not able to get to the webinar portion but are following along with slides. For those of you who are on slide number 10, if you want to get caught up there. As for our approach, what we go with sort of it's an evidence-based decision-making approach, scientifically based. What we look at is starting out with the end in mind there, is framing that objective, finding out, what is it we need to, what problem are we trying to solve? What are we trying to get to in the end state? From there, we need to find the evidence. That's the data that's going to support that decision, support that, generate the knowledge that we need to move forward smartly and make the most of the data that we have available. The analysis, the analyzed piece of that's taking multiple sets of data and creating, you could say, creating new data out of it. It's taking what's out there and creating value from that existing data. The visualization piece is the actual application itself. That's where we take it and make it visually intuitive so that the user can make sense of that data. And of course, then the action itself is what, from the user end, what can we do with it? Are we monitoring, looking for timely, relevant information? Are we trying to measure, understand some aspect of a process? Or are we actually trying to manage? Are we trying to share data amongst various stakeholders or look at key metrics there to help us understand our decisions and how it's going forward? From the analyze piece, looking down in a little more detail there, we want to explore and transform that data. Do we want to just look at it from a discovery piece? That's, again, where we're identifying the associations, the trends, the hidden gaps in the data. If we want to take it a step further, look at the diagnosis piece, allows us to drill into the root causes, identify the business rules, algorithms, and mathematical models that help us to really understand the data. And that's going to help us answer that so what, get to the, what's important with that data. Then the next level up, we want to, from a value of information, will be to prescribe, be able to answer the now what. That's integrating those key indicators and associations, being able to rapidly identify the issues and take action. And of course, then, the top level there, answering the what if and the what's new. What's important is the prediction piece. Obviously, we're getting into advanced algorithms, models, and simulation to support that as well. From an implementation standpoint, one thing we found, and we've learned this from our own applications that we built in-house to solve our own problems, as well as working with customers, is what we do not do is just go in and say, okay, what are your requirements, and then run away for 6 months and come back with a solution. We found that absolutely does not work. to create a viable solution in this case. So we use an agile implementation process where we start out with, we take those objectives, we try to look at what we're trying to solve, do the look for the data, the evidence that's out there. Then as quickly as possible, we build a prototype and get right back. That could be as short as a week or two even. Because what we want to do, what we find out is that the users, once they actually see the data in action, it's going to change their opinion. They're going to see things that they didn't think of before. And so we're going to go through this iterative process where we create an application, we create a solution that provides insight into metrics and into the data, and then we gain more insight as we go back and forth with the user and evolve that till ultimately we have a final product that the users definitely had their hand in. They've been engaged throughout, and by the time it's done, they understand it, and it's exactly what they're looking for. One example we have out there that sort of touches on the process that we've used from an end-to-end standpoint, and for those that are following along, I'm on slide 13 now, is the Department of Defense Educational Activity Student Meal Program. DoDEA was asked to take over the program that was being run by the Department of Defense, and in order to do that, they needed to have a better understanding of the fiscal, commitment that they were getting involved in. They looked at the numbers that they were given. They didn't have, I'd say they had very little faith in the way it was being managed and the actual cost of running the program. So we came in to do an economic analysis. What we discovered was that it was a very complex program. It took a tremendous amount of time to collect all the data. It ended up being around 1,200 data sources to be all pulled together. But the end result was gain insight into a $36 million project, but the key point is it identified $19 million that was unbudgeted, that wasn't accounted for in the program. Now, in order to do this, it took us, the requirement was to try to gain insight into that data. So we ended up using this application to create a solution that helped us solve the problem and come up with an effective economic analysis for this example. And I'm going to show you a live demo of this later, so it'll make a little bit more sense. And like Don mentioned early on, every solution that we get involved in, how we create it, it has sort of a unique feel to it. If you look on the right, we've listed those same capabilities that we have within the company. The highlighted capabilities there or what we pulled from in order to generate this solution. Again, every project out there has its own unique set of capabilities that we need to pull in to create an effective solution. Quick overview of the program and how it ran. It was about 3 months to collect the data, pull it into the application. Took about another month, about a month of data discovery and data cleanup. And that's one of the key pieces of this is once you gain insight into the data, you gain insight from the data, but you also see the quality of the data itself, and that's a significant part of the solution is correcting the data itself. And about a month to produce the final report and socialize. And under typical situations, probably would have been at least a 1-year program to do this. We think the ability to gain insight into the data much quicker and more effectively significantly shortened the time to generate a solution in this case. Slide 15. We talk about discovery and what do we mean by that? This is going to be one example. This particular application was being used not only to generate insight into the data, but it turned into a briefing tool because it was much more effective to brief the actual data than it was to brief static PowerPoint slides. And during one of the briefs, one of the flag officers saw the graphic in the upper left there, or a similar version of that. And of course, his hand came up, and he asked the question: why is the price of meals so high at this one particular school? Through a couple clicks through the data, they were able to gain insight and see how the labor costs were based on the size and the school, and basically able to answer the question of why the costs of that particular school were very high relative to other schools. And that was a great insight. And what it highlighted was the power of the access to the data and being able to see the associations and how it contributes to in this case, to the actual value or the cost per meal. Under a normal circumstance, we would have, what would have happened? The flag officer would have tasked somebody that would have gone off, researched the problem, and then, a week or two, try to get back on his schedule, come back with a solution. Vice, what happened was, in less than a minute, clicked through the data, got the insight, understood the problem, and was able to make a decision and move forward immediately, saving both time and effort, and certainly being much more efficient and effective. And I'll show you some examples of that later. I'm going to go touch into the demo now. little quote there from another program we worked on. Basically, this is gives us perspective into the data analysis. So obviously, we want to take that data and be able to make informed decisions from it. So that I will jump into the actual data itself. I see there are some questions up there, and we will address those when we get to the end here. This is the actual version of the tool that was developed to do the economic analysis for the student meal program. Understand that this is the student meal program may or may not be relevant to the type of program that you're managing or involved with, but understand it is relevant in the sense that it is a very complex program, a lot of moving parts that required great insight based on the data in order to effectively manage and understand the costs and what was driving the costs within the program. Quick top view here. The data supports, basically came up the 191 schools with 167 cafeterias, 172,000 students, serving, a significant number of meals there. You can see there it was 19 million meals. So that gives you the top level. As we drill through the way the data was set up, we can look at profit and loss very quickly. Look at we can go look at it by year if that's the way we want to do it. If we want to select certain break it down into individual regions or schools, we can very quickly do that as well. So very quick and easy to sort through the data. Able to do some what if profit and loss in this case to support those emergent questions that comes up. That what if this costs more? What if we raise our meal prices? How's that going to impact things? So we can very simply we can run the numbers, generate the solutions, export the data out to Excel to support a brief or to support a question, some sort of insight into the program itself. And again, you can see here with the cost increase, how it drives it. Again, all the data it's associated throughout in the model. So if we want to go behind the scenes and look into the various regions, again, we can do the same thing and slice it any way we want to generate the answers or answer the questions that come up to support our program. If we want to gain insight into specific aspects of the program, again, this is a student meal program, so it's just one aspect of it. But you can, try to apply this to the programs you're involved with. How do they break down? What are the elements that drive the cost, schedule, performance of that particular program, and how can we use data to gain insight into all those individual aspects? So in this particular aspect, we can see the meal, the total meals, and then how they're broke up by from a costing perspective and how they're being utilized there. From a details aspect, we don't lose that traditional. If we want to get the Excel-looking views, that's still available. We're not losing any capability, so that's still available for those who want to see something like that. This was what I showed you earlier. This is a sample of that. This is particular showed up in a brief, so they saw a version of this. I believe it was on one particular year where they saw, okay, the student meal price was very high. Obviously, what drove that? Simply selecting in the data, going back to the summary, we're able to see it was one school with one cafeteria, and in that particular year, a very small enrollment. And we can see as a result of that, the labor and personnel costs were very high. They were very disproportionate. And if we wanted to just gain some insight and compare and say, okay, well, this school here is obviously much lower. Well, what are we looking at there? One school, one cafeteria, a much larger enrollment, a much smaller proportion of labor and personnel costs associated with it. So in very little time, we're able to gain some insight and understanding into the program itself. And again, the program, this particular application allows you to sort through the data and ask and answer the questions of the data as you see fit. And hop into another example here, and this one, resource management, obviously very important in any program management situation. This particular application was developed to look at personnel, manpower resources, and do some what-if drills as they always came up with budgets and whatnot. So we had a given manpower breakout of, in this particular case, it was officer, enlisted, civilian, and contractor. Through a series of workshops and data collection, we generated some metrics associated with required capabilities within the organization, and generated values that constituted, what amounts to effective execution of the critical tasks within the organization, and the contributors based on the resources, in this case the manpower, and how it broke down, what the costs and drivers were associated with that. So in this case, we're able to run drills and say, okay, well, what happens if we lose a certain portion of our civilian workforce? We can see both the cost impacts and the performance impacts. So again, we can play with these. There's some sensitivity in there. Run them between contractors, civilian. We can find out where things start to, where they start to break. And what it does is it gives us insight into, okay, what are the drivers? Where do I need to be concerned? Where can I most efficiently allocate my resources to still meet my requirements, meet the capabilities that I desire within the organization? And again, that could be, in this case, it was from a performance standpoint and a cost standpoint. So we could look at it from both ways. One last quick demonstration I'm going to give. This is a sampling from a couple of different programs we've worked on. With any given program, you find you have to give those, maybe it's a weekly report where you bring the team in and everybody gives a status report. Think about the time it takes to build the various slides. So we had a customer who said, you know what, I have to give this brief every week. It's an inordinate amount of time spent building slides. How can we shorten that? So we took all the data that supported the development of the slide, made it look like their slide, and now all they have to do is open up the application. It updates all the data real time on the spot, so they can go through and do a quick review of the program based on current data with no preparation time whatsoever, other than just updating the data sources on a regular basis that they would normally do anyway. So in this particular example, they can select the program, see a summary of it. They can look at risk data, program assessment data, milestones, cost data, or in this case EVM specifics. And then when it's time to brief the next program, they just select it. Notice everything changes over. All the EVM data is updated, the milestones, the risks, the program manager's assessment, and the overview. Very quick and easy way to go through. Everybody's working from the same sheet of music, and we can spend time focusing on what the data is telling us, not the time spent building the slides and just trying to prepare for a brief. Another quick example was a program had 22 subcontractors spread into 8 teams, and it was incrementally funded. And what was happening was, as certain subcontractors, if they didn't meet their funding, if the incremental funding wasn't coming in on time, there would be a pause in the work being done, which was causing delays in the program. So the program manager wanted further insight into the spending of each individual subcontractor so that he could initiate follow-on contract actions to keep them under contract and funded without any delays in the program, so that the program could continue on. It allowed the program manager, again, in this particular case, is when it reached 80% of their funding, he knew to initiate contracting actions to get things done on time. Allowed the program manager to look at it and slice it amongst the various teams. So he could, if there was a particular team that was going to be working heavily coming up, he knew he could slice the data and look at any way he saw fit in order to gain insight into the program and into the data. And then the last quick example I'll show was a program summary. This was a significant effort to basically it's a weekly summary brief, again, not unlike the other one, but it consists of a large number of data sources. And what it allows the users to do is come in, select a time frame. It updates all the various charts. Again, you can see their EVM, staffing, management reserve. Automatically calculates, some statuses based, green, yellow, red type updates to give them insight. And if they want to drill down further, they can go into a more detailed chart. Look at different time frames. Select the select the data as they want to drill into it and gain the insight that they're interested in. So that's a very quick look at some of the applications we've built and how they're being used. I'm going to turn it back over to Don. He's going to wrap things up here for you.
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. I'm just going to go over some of the benefits that we've observed, some of the benefits out there in industry, to try to drive them back to what's in it for you and what's in it for us. So when you look at reporting overhead, you're really looking at how much time does your organization spend putting together reports, PowerPoint, Excel, Word. I mean, that's the first level here of just a tremendous amount of hours. And at the sacrifice of what? The sacrifice of not being able to conduct that deep analysis, understanding those hidden trends, understanding the associations of data. Employee productivity, you know, I've been doing analysis most of my life, and I can tell you that it's the most frustrating thing trying to get the data mashed together. Vice being able to serve that up, and then I can sit back and think about it. With the speed of life the way it is today, it's really hard to find just time to think. And then business agility, and when you translate that over to the federal government, I really akin that to your ability to make decisions and pivot. Pivoting being the ability to understand that you have a trend that's coming, you can predict that trend, you can create multiple scenarios or mitigating strategies, and then given that, in the example that Paul was showing with the Marine Corps Command, they went through a reduction in their overhead capability. That reduced them to a specific level of performance. And then sequestration happened, which was another 20% reduction. So you can see here the top benefits, but our experience to date, specifically, significant labor reduction in data manipulation. We do a lot of analysis work here at WBB. Internally, we've actually applied this as part of our service delivery, not necessarily to deliver an application, but to actually deliver our services, whether it be a program management, BCA, a business case analysis, or so forth. It really reduces that time to value to the client, and it increases the value overall. Speed of delivery, accuracy analysis, and interactive customer engagement, and probably the most interesting thing is the speed of thought versus the speed of staff, and that's what Paul was explaining earlier in that slide. Those flag executives, those executive level, they made the actual decision right there in the moment, which is uncommon in that type of a board scenario. Next slide. So just to get off the stage here, you can't manage what you can't see, and that's really what this is all about. But we're working to help our clients really achieve, in a quick manner, collaborative and shared analytical environment. Breaking down data functional stovepipes, particularly in program management, you have contracts competing with finance, competing with budget, competing with schedule, competing with logistics and modernization. There's a lot of moving parts. And at the end of the week or end of the month, somebody's responsible for collapsing all that into a PowerPoint, of which is already time late. Creating a culture of analytic curiosity. There's a shortage of analysts that's going to continue to become a problem as we go out there, but giving analysts the actual tools to be able to dig in and give decision makers the reasons for why that data is the way it is, or why that information, or why that indicator, and what to do next. Insight, real-time analytics, removing unnecessary steps from the staffing process, and significantly shortening the decision cycle time. Boss asks a question, the question gets answered. And next slide. So what we'd really like to do is open this up to any questions that are online, and Paul and I will sit here and field these. Yeah, so the first question on the board is, we already use a dashboard. What makes Discovery Informatics different? What's the benefit? Well, first of all, it's really not about the dashboard. It's about the evidence-based process. What we've experienced is twofold, and it's really is what type of dashboard is it? Is it a large stack vendor BI system where you have to go out and you really rely heavily on IT to do that, or is it more of a self-service where the knowledge side, the management side, has control over how that looks and feels and pulls the data from the IT side? The other part of it is we've actually been into a lot of organizations recently that have spent a lot of money on dashboards, but they've never walked through the process of bringing the SMEs on board, bringing the team, bringing the objectivity, and walking through those steps such that they're answering the questions they need to ask. They're surfacing the information such that it's evidence, not just interesting facts, and institutionalizing into your daily work. It tends to be, at least from what I've seen in many cases, it tends to be just another thing to think about by part of your daily job. What's the first question?
Let's get that. Where to use? We got that. Yes, we can get a copy of the brief. You've got our email there at the bottom. Feel free to shoot either Don or myself an email, and we'd be more than happy to get you a copy of the brief. So that's that one.
So there was another question about the analysis. So really, when we're talking about, it's not about surfacing the information, and as Paul was showing you that one slide, as a matter of fact, if you could back up to that one slide, the value of information slide. Keep going. There you go. There you go, right here. Slide 13. There you go. It's really about the analysis behind this, right? So it's not just about surfacing the information. The reporting aspect is probably the fastest return on your investment, or return on this. The next level is it's that diagnostic and prescriptive. So we all run, many of us run very large models, optimization type models, any type of transformation models, simulation, so forth. The ability to set, generally those get run by very smart people. It requires very specific skills. They get the data comes back. They get presented in some generally static form, whether it be a brief or a set of spreadsheets and charts. In this case, what we're doing is using those exact same models. We're pulling that data. We're sending the data out to that model. That data gets transformed and created into new data. And then we bring that back in a visual display, which really not just gives you the answer, but also gives you that level of insight in a visual way. And then you get into that prescriptive and predictive. And the predictive piece, like in that Marine Corps example, be able to predict where their performance would drop and what they would have to change to reallocate their capacity of their workforce to what was really powerful for them. And it gave them a couple of different options. And they were probably the most prepared organization that I had been working with recently for sequestration. Are there any other questions?
How is the data imported into the system? Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Actually, in this particular case, we use the QlikView BI application, and we just run some scripts that connect into the data. As long as the data exists in a structured data source, we can pull multiple sources simultaneously and pull it in there. It could be Access, Excel, CSV file, SQL, Microsoft Project, any of those or all of those at one time. In fact, I would say the vast majority of our applications pull from multiple data sources, and as long as we can connect through a network, we can tie into it. So certainly the permissions and the access into it is important. We'll pull it in. Then there's typically some level of cleanup and with the names and the data sources just to get it to read cleanly, but generally not too much of a challenge. So.
Just to add on to that, we're not changing the data from an input perspective here too. Really, really critical piece. A lot of times we pull data, we throw it in Excel, and I've done it, I do it all the time. I make those changes, and then I present the graph, but the source data never got fixed. In this case, we're just visualizing that data. We're not changing the data at the source such that the data at the source now becomes fixed, and then you start to get a clean landscape. Any other questions?
That's all the ones we have online.
Yeah. So with that, we'd like to really thank you for your attendance. You'll be getting an email follow-up and your $10 Starbucks card. We'll look forward to talking to you.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you for attending WBB's webinar on Discovery Informatics. We hope you found this session informative. An email will be sent to you with a link to this recorded session and a voucher to redeem your $10 Starbucks gift card. If you have any additional questions on our solution, you may contact Don and Paul through the information shown on the screen, and we would be happy to schedule some time with you to discuss. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.